Outside, the snow was this high. I had to get to London. There was a group very much like yourselves waiting for me to talk about being organized. And I had not my passport or my keys. So I broke the window to my house. I went in, I got my keys, I got my passport. I called my contractor on the phone. I told him he had to fix the window. And then I started thinking, something is wrong here. I should know better. And so I started looking at the research on being organized. And I'm just curious, how many of you have had an experience like this? How many of you have... I'm not alone, right? Well, thank you. I was feeling very alone there for a minute. I appreciate that. Tell me, what experience did you have that was similar but not identical? Anybody? Yes, sir. What was your experience where you forgot something or, like leaving something behind? What did you understand the question to be? Oh, well, that's fine. What was your difficult experience? Edgar Enrique. Share with us. This is a friendly group. Whatever you say will stay here. Edgar realized one day that he was not wearing underwear. That happens. Anybody else? Leaving something, forgetting something? Yes.
I forgot my visa, my Mexican visa, so I had to use the one and only waiver that the United States gives you to enter, and I had to convince him why I was going in.
So the question is, what can we do about this kind of thing? As soon as I got home from my trip to London, so that I would never get locked out of the house again, and by the way, it cost $500 to repair the window that I broke, and so that was a good motivation. As soon as I got home, I installed a little lock box on the side of the house. It has a combination that I can remember very easily, and it holds the key to the house. And then I started thinking, what else can I do? Well, I can put my passport and my keys in a place that I won't forget them. There was a very famous psychologist from Harvard named Skinner. And Skinner used to organize his entire house so that he wouldn't forget things. If he heard on the news that it was going to rain, right away, he'd go get the umbrella from the closet, and he'd put it on the front doorknob. Now, when he leaves the house, the umbrella is right there. He doesn't have to remember to take it. The environment is reminding him. In neuroscience, what we call this is externalizing your memory. Your brain gets crowded. Your brain gets full of things. You may not know this. How many things do you think your brain can pay attention to at one time? Anybody? Just shout it out. 20? Do I hear anything else? 15, I hear. 3. You've got the answer right. Your brain can pay attention to 3 things at once. Maximum. Maximum. Under most circumstances, 1 thing at a time. So if you're trying to remember when you leave the house, I need my sunglasses, I need my keys, I need my passport, I need my cell phone, I need my umbrella. That's too many things. Your brain hits overload. One of the things that neuroscientists have learned about this overload is that it releases cortisol in your body. Cortisol is a very toxic chemical. It's very useful if you're trying to run away from a tiger or if you need to fight off an invader. But cortisol is very useless, not useful for most other things. And one of the things that cortisol does is it makes your thinking very cloudy. It makes your thinking just in terms of fighting and running away, not in terms of logical thought. So you want to avoid a situation where your brain is trying to juggle too many things at one time. So I started looking at the research literature, and I came up with a number of things. I keep my keys on a hook by the door. They're always in the same place. There's a hook right by the door. As soon as I get home, the keys go there. As I'm leaving the house, it reminds me to put the keys there. I get a little confused when I'm in a hotel room because I don't have a hook by the door, but I take a white towel from the bathroom and I put it on the desk, and I put my wallet and my keys and my passport on the towel because the towel looks so strange and incongruous on the desk. It reminds me to pay attention, and I pick everything up. There are a number of these externalizing strategies, and probably the most important one is to write things down on little pieces of paper. You can use a big piece of paper if you want. I like the little pieces of paper because then I can put one thing on each page, and then throughout the day I can reorganize them, like I have here to remind me what to talk about. So the question is, how do we build a plan into our lives in a seamless and not time-consuming way? The obvious thing is have a dedicated place for things around your house or around your office. If it's a dedicated place, the things will always be there. If you're always losing your cell phone charger, buy an extra one. Put one in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, one in the office, one in the car. And then you don't have to always take it with you because it is going to be where it needs to be. I have a backpack, an attaché case, a briefcase. I have a cell phone charger in there. My passport is in there, and so on. All of this is called the pre-mortem. You know, when there's a disaster, when there's a crime, the police come out and they conduct what's called a post-mortem. They try to figure out what happened. The pre-mortem is you try to figure out what could go wrong before it actually happens. If you're running a large company like Coca-Cola or running a large country like Mexico, a lot of your time is spent trying to figure out what could go wrong and what can I do about it ahead of time, either to prevent it from going wrong or if it does go wrong, to have a system in place to fix it right away. And we can do all of this, each of us, in our daily lives. I wonder if some of you would tell me, what's a problem that you have, a thing that keeps going wrong over and over in your life, and maybe we can figure out a way to fix it. Any volunteers? You? Yes.
Right. You want me to speak in English?
Yes, English.
Oh, English. So, yep.
What is the thing that keeps going wrong in your life?
How many of them? Well, I think the worst thing that keeps coming in my life that I'm still forgetting is right now I'm the manager of a large group of salesmen. I keep changing their names. It was something I always criticized about my father, and I'm doing the same thing each day.
Forgetting names is a big problem, and I have some advice about that. How many people here find yourself forgetting names? It's a lot of us, right? And maybe you forget the name when you just meet somebody. Maybe you forget the name of somebody you've known for a long time. I'll tell you something interesting. In almost every case, you know the person's name. You're not meeting somebody named blah, blah, blah. You're meeting somebody named Eduardo or Edward or Marta. You know the name. The problem is associating the name with the particular person who is in front of you. When you meet somebody for the first time at a party or at a meet and greet, a tapas y tapas like we had yesterday, here's the advice that neuroscience recommends. Stop for a minute. Think about what's usually going on in your mind when you meet somebody new. You're worried about whether you're going to make a good impression on them. You're worried about whether they're going to like you. That's a normal reaction. You're worried about whether you'll say something smart or something stupid. You're all caught up in yourself. I had an interesting conversation with His Holiness the Dalai Lama 2 weeks ago, and his solution to almost every problem is to stop thinking about yourself and to think about other people. if you meet somebody at the party, stop worrying about whether you're going to make a good impression and start focusing on them. The person introduces themselves. They say, hello, my name is Esteban. My name is Guillermo. My name is Maria. And then you use their name right away. Very nice to meet you, Maria. Glad to meet you, Maria. Use the name again. Where are you from, Maria? Why are you here at this gathering, Maria? Keep using the name, and then the best thing is introduce somebody else. Go with your new friend down the line to the party and say, Mario, I would like you to meet Maria. You're using the name and you're reminding yourself. And you can always say to somebody, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. Could you remind me of your name, please? People like it when you do that because it shows that you're interested. Anybody else have a big problem, a recurring problem in your business life? We'll solve all of them here, no charge. Yes. This is the participatory side of the room, I see.
Well, hello. Thanks for being here. Well, I was always trying to be mindful, you know, like to be here and now, and like I've been practicing meditation and stuff like that. So now I used to multitask a lot. So now that I'm trying like to focus on what I'm doing and to being present, now it is very difficult for me to multitask. So whether I'm doing something and somebody's talking to me, I'm like, stop. I cannot attend that because I'm doing this. So now it's kind of difficult to multitask for me.
Multitasking. You know what we mean by multitasking, doing more than one thing at a time. How many of you have been driving your car, and the radio is on, and you're carrying on a conversation at the same time? Just stand up and cheer if this has ever been you. Stand up, cheer. Yay. Now, you're driving, the radio's on, you're carrying on a conversation. Maybe you're looking for a parking place. What's the first thing you do? You turn the radio down. Maybe you stop the conversation. You tell the person, hold on a minute. Or you're driving on the freeway, same thing. You're looking for an exit. You turn down the radio. Why do you do this? Because attention is a limited capacity resource. It's like oil. There's a limited amount of attention. And you have a limited amount of fuel in your brain. The brain's fuel is glucose. There's not an unlimited supply. And instinctively, you know that you can't pay attention to all of these things at once. If you're looking for a parking place, you have to stop the attentional flow. You have to stop the bombardment of thoughts and ideas so that you can concentrate. But we all keep trying to multitask, and mindfulness, as you said, is a solution for this. There's now a lot of research, a lot of it coming out of MIT, from a laboratory there that studies attention and multitasking. It turns out that Earl Miller's laboratory, if you'd like to see it, it turns out that multitasking does not exist. It's a myth because the brain does not work that way. You may have heard about parallel processing computers and serial processing computers. The brain is a serial processing device, actually. It just seems like it's parallel to us because it works so quickly. But it does one thing at a time. Your brain pays attention to one thing, and then it shifts to another, and then another, and then another, and then it comes back around to the first one. And all of this divides your brain into little tiny pieces and little tiny projects. And that costs a lot of glucose. It uses up a lot of the fuel of the brain. You might think you're doing 4 things at once. You're really only doing one thing at once. And we've now seen from a lot of research in the workplace that people who are trying to multitask get less done at the end of the day than people who monotask, people who do one thing. You get more done if you do one thing at a time, less done if you try to do a lot at once. The quality of the work is poor, is lower quality if you're multitasking, and the creativity and problem solving are lower. Here's the problem. Everybody who's multitasking thinks that they're doing a better job. They're convinced that they got everything going on, they're really doing great. And if you ask them how much more did you get done than the average person, they say, oh yeah, it's really working, I'm on top of it all. But I can tell you as a neuroscientist, the brain is a massive self-deception device. The brain is massively deceiving you all of the time. For example, if I were to drink tequila, my brain would tell me that I'm a very good fighter, and I know from experience that I am not. Also, the other problem with tequila is my brain tells me I'm very funny, and it turns out people around me think I'm not so funny. But setting that aside, the brain engages in self-deception. You can't trust your instincts on this. So monotasking, unitasking is the important solution to a lot of these problems. Another thing is that I learned from looking at the neuroscience literature has to do with productivity. And I've become very interested in how we can all be more productive at work and at home and even in our leisure time. Who doesn't want to have more time to spend doing the things they love outside of work and also have more time at work? There's two solutions there. One, write things down. Make a list of everything you have to do and then prioritize them. You don't have to, as I said, you don't have to put them on little cards. You can put them on a big sheet of paper. But the idea is, how many of you have had this experience? You're typing away at your computer, and then a little voice in your head says, maybe I should be working on something else. Or maybe I should check my email. Has this happened to any of you? Or you go out to the web to get some information, and next thing you know, 2 hours is gone, and you've spent it on Facebook, Instagram, Vine, Tumblr, Pinterest, Twitter, and all of the rest, right? So what's happening here? One is we're not sure most of the time that the thing we're working on is the most important thing. But I promise you, if you write down everything you have to do, everything at work, the milk you have to pick up on the way home, the decision you have to make about your investments or your retirement fund. Write it all down, and then prioritize it, and then sit down at your computer and do the thing that's at the top of your list. If you're doing the thing that's at the top of your list, by definition, it's the very most important thing. And your brain will stop trying to remind you of all these other things that are distracting you, because your brain knows you're doing the most important thing. Set a time limit if you want. I'm going to work on this project for an hour, and then I'm going to do something else. It's crucial, absolutely crucial, to prioritize. So the most powerful thing is to know that whatever you're doing now is the most important thing you could be doing. And that applies to leisure. If you're at the movies, if you're out at dinner, you don't have to be texting somebody who's not there. You don't have to be worried about some unfinished project at work, because this is the time that you have dedicated to being at dinner with your friends. The second part of all of this that I'd like to recommend is that you regain control of your schedule. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of email and text messages, and my phone and my computer are making noise all the time, and I find it very difficult to get any creative work done with all these interruptions. So I took a page out of Silicon Valley. What we're doing in Silicon Valley and at the university I work at, Minerva, is we have enforced productivity time. There's a time, an hour or two during the day, where we turn off our email, we turn off the telephone, and we just work. And if somebody needs to reach us, they walk by the desk. If it's really important, they'll figure out how to find us. I have a separate phone. There's only 10 people that have that phone number. But you don't need to go to that extreme. With the iPhone, you can designate people as your favorites, and when it's in silent mode or do not disturb mode, only the 5 or 10 people you designate ring through. Very powerful for being creative. I spent many years in the recording studio working with musical groups like Stevie Wonder and Joni Mitchell, and you can't be interrupted in the flow of creativity like that. It's very disturbing to the creative flow of an artist. But you don't need to be Eric Clapton or Stevie Wonder to enjoy that kind of freedom. You can enjoy it yourself. Turn off your email for a couple of hours a day. and let people know that it's going to be off and that you're not always going to respond right away. Maybe let them know that if something's urgent, they should text you. And tell people, I'm sorry, don't text me if it's not urgent. You should be in control of when you're interrupted. You should decide what you're going to work on, rather than letting the outside world tell you when you're going to be distracted. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Please.
My name's Erica Garcia from Foundation Vacaciones con Causa, and my business is tourism. I bring tourism to Quintana Roo and the Riviera Maya. And one of the things that we're using is neuroscience to sell more vacations. So we are using those devices and focus groups to focus on what people are clicking on pixel-wise, but also the emotion that they're feeling when they're reacting to some of the pictures, etc. What's your take on that? And give us feedback.
My view of selling is influenced a lot by my sister. My sister, Sherry Levitin, is one of the great salespeople of all time. She's written a book about it called, what's it called? It's Selling from the Heart or something like that. My sister's view is that the best way to sell something is to get to know your customer, get to know what they want, sell from the heart, and give them something they want. The worst way to sell something is to convince them to buy something they didn't really want. You're better off having a lifetime customer than a customer who buys from you one time. You're better. Look at the transition in Mexico from Pepsi to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has a very loyal, very dedicated clientele. People love Coca-Cola. It wasn't always the case. They used to love Pepsi. Pepsi had a greater share of the market. Coca-Cola has sold you emotionally on the product. My sister sells real estate and vacation ownership packages, but she doesn't try to sell it by tricking you or saying that you're going to get something different than you are. And she often ends up saying, maybe this product isn't for you. Maybe I don't have anything that will help you. But then those customers come back a year or two later and they say, you know, I really like you. I trust you. I know that you're not trying to cheat me. I bought something. I bought a piece of sound equipment many, many years ago, a mixing console that was very expensive for me at the time. It was $1,000. I couldn't believe how much money it was. And I bought it from a salesman at an audio store in San Francisco. And I used it for a few days in the recording studio, and I didn't like it. And I brought it back, and I had bought it used, and there was no guarantee and no refund policy. And the salesman said, don't worry about it. Let me see if I can sell it for you. I'll find a buyer. The salesman found a buyer for $1,700. I paid $1,000. He sold it for $1,700. Now, he could have kept the $700. I wouldn't have known. But he called me on the phone. He said, I have $700 for you. You made a profit. I said, why would you do that? He said, because it's not mine. You owned it. You paid for it. That guy has a customer for life. I've been working with him for 35 years now. So I think selling is about relationships, whether it's tourism, whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's selling ideas. The ethical thing is to not try and give somebody something they don't need. And the way you get to that understanding is by learning about them, asking questions. What motivates you? What do you really need? How can I help? Any other questions? Yes? Oh, let me come back to you.
Thank you. My name is Shafiq Khan, Daniel. My question is, how do you say no to yourself in a situation where there are many things you want to do and you just take on one and the next and the next and the next, and it's hard for you to say no to yourself. And eventually you find that you can't do them all as well as you want to do them. So how do you say no to yourself?
Thank you, Shafiq. That's a great question. I think all of us here, you wouldn't be here at CITEK if you weren't ambitious, if you weren't productive, if you weren't trying to do a lot of things, you would be somewhere else. But all of us here share this quality that we want to contribute to the world. We want to do a lot of different things. We don't like saying no. In my case, it was a lesson that came very late. I had to realize that there's some things that I'm good at and some things that I'm not good at. And learning what my strengths were means that I'll say yes to things where I think I'm the only person or among a few people who could do it in the way that I would do it. And the rest of the time I say to the person, oh, you should ask so-and-so. I have a colleague who's better at that. Well, my colleague loves it. They don't think that I'm trying to steal all of the work for myself. And so we develop a nice relationship. Then later they give me some work that came to them. I also collaborate very widely. I have 30 or 40 collaborators in different fields. But it's also, I get a lot more done now than I did 5 years ago because I'm using this index card system. I prioritize everything. I have a lot more time, both for work and for family and for leisure, because I'm not spending a lot of time wondering if I should be doing something else. I'm not spending a lot of time doing things that I can't control. I used to have things on my to-do list that would get, I don't know if this happened to any of you, but I would have a thing on my to-do list and it would be there for weeks or months, and it would never get done. And then I met a man named David Allen. You may know his work on the Getting Things Done principle. David Allen's principle is set aside some time every day, even if it's just 20 or 30 minutes, to do all those little things that keep piling up. If you've got something that you can do in 1 minute or 2 minutes, do them all at once, get it off your plate. So I think saying no is a relative term. I say yes to things that I think I can do a good job at. Some of them are very challenging and take a lot of time. Some of them are easy and don't. And I spread the love among colleagues and people who would be faster at it than I am, and so why shouldn't they be involved? I'm afraid that our time is up. I've had such a good experience sharing these ideas with you. Thank you so much for inviting me. One more, I'm told. One more question. I will let you choose.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Arturo Lubiano. How could I develop the mindfulness in teamwork?
Arturo, how would you develop?
The mindfulness in teamwork?
I missed that one word.
How would you generate mindfulness, in teamwork? Wow, that's hard.
Mindfulness requires, in a team, that everybody have the same goals. And it sounds a little bit silly, but often we'll get together with a bunch of people, and the people don't agree on what they're there to do. So you sit down and you say, why do you think we're here? Leadership in this context is empowering the other people that are part of the team. It's not you being bossy or you telling them what to do. Ask them why they think they're here, how they think they can contribute, and allow the organization, the team, Arturo, to come to some consensus about why you're there, and then talk about how you're going to get there. Find out what different levels of expertise, different areas of expertise people have and what they can contribute. And I think the other thing is to allow in any collaborative effort, and we do this at Minerva Institute, we have done it in every organization I've been a part of, allow for there to be time to just let your mind wander. One of the biggest findings in neuroscience in the last 20 years is the discovery of a circuit in the brain, an actual electrical circuit, called the mind-wandering mode. You might see it referred to as the default mode network. I call it the mind-wandering mode. It's easier to remember. It's the opposite of when you're really engaged in something and really paying attention. It's more like when you're sitting on the beach in Mazatlan, you're looking out at the water, you have a nice drink, you're relaxed. Your thoughts are not really under your control. Your mind is putting together things that it didn't see as connected before. It's like a daydream. This mode is where most of the problem solving of the brain occurs. And if you can get yourself in this way of thinking as part of a team, by closing your eyes, by meditating, listening to music, going for a walk in nature, engaging with nature, engaging with art, these are all reliable ways to relax the circuits in your brain to allow it to solve creative problems. If you do that, you find it's very restorative, and it will engender the kind of mindfulness that you're looking for in your team. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Daniel Joseph Levitin. Well, now you have a plant. Whenever you think you have a burnout, you could go and contemplate the plant.
I will.
And you could get a piece of Mexico, too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicente Fox.
No, solo hacerles la recomendación, es un libro espectacular. Este último libro que él sacó con todo esto, pero también con la relación a la música. Es formidable para usar mejor el cerebro.